the wars in which the weapons are used to kill fellow persons, right? Where there are no survivors. Now, whenever there is a war, somebody might lose, somebody might win, but again, there are no survivors. Ultimately, it's a loss of mankind. So this would be the moment when even these people who are involved in green wars and these people who are involved in actual wars, they will be all together. They will put on clean clothes. They won't be in their uh, warrior dresses, and they will put on clean clothes and walk about with their brothers. They would walk with their brothers, right? So this would be a time of introspection for them too. They would give a pause of that quarreling, of that fighting, and they would walk about with their brothers in the shade doing nothing. That would be the time when even they would be doing nothing at all. Now, here the poet wants to clear one thing. He says, when I'm asking that there should be a pause for a few minutes, everybody should be quiet. There won't be any kind of movement, right? The entire world for a few seconds should come to a standstill. He says, I do not want these lines to be misunderstood or that the readers should be confused with total inactivity. He says that total inactivity simply means where there is no kind of movement. It should not be related to death, where the person is absolutely still, right? Death is also when there is no kind of a movement. But he says that I'm not talking about death. Please do not get confused, right? It is simply related to inactivity where everybody stops working, everybody stops doing whatever work they are doing. There should be no movement at all. And everybody is together in harmony with their fellow human beings in this quietness, in this stillness, right? Gunul, please read out this explanation.
The people who exploit the green wealth of nature by deforestation or mining or fishing in the deep seas, and the soldiers who use weapons to kill fellow human beings need some time to introspect into the consequences of their actions. They are merely doing their jobs or following orders. He wants them to put on new clothes, like to adopt a new approach towards life and to realize that killing so many people is not a victory. He wants all of us to be united as one, consider our enemy to be our brother. He is promoting brotherhood, peace and unity. He does not want us to stop our works but to take some time and analyze the results of our deeds.
Okay. Kindly read out this stanza also.
The poet asks everyone to stop those activities which are damaging the environment. Today, all the human beings are making money by damaging the environment with their activities such as mining, deforestation, letting the chemicals waste into rivers, etc. The poet asks us not to do so. He also requests people not to involve in wars as there is no benefit of achieving such victory in which no one is left alive. He says so because wars and environmental damage will lead to no life on Earth. Rather, he wants people to adopt a new approach towards life and mankind. He says that you should treat your enemy like brothers and promote peace and harmony in the world.
Okay, fine. I think this stanza is clear. Let me move on to the fourth stanza. If we were not so single minded about keeping our lives moving, and for once could perhaps a youth's silence might interrupt this sadness of never understanding ourselves and of threatening ourselves with death. Now, here the poet is talking about that if we were not so selfish and we were not so much so occupied and so much busy in our lives that we were just thinking about our work, right? What we are doing, we are scheduled, we are tied up in that tight schedule, right? So if we were not so single-minded about keeping our lives moving, we are every time we are in a hush that at any point our life to survive we need to do certain jobs, and we are so busy of doing those jobs, doing those activities that we want a life to be on the track to keep on moving, right? And for once could perhaps a youth silence might interrupt this sadness. He says that in that process of following our duties, in that process of doing our scheduled regular jobs, there is some kind of sadness is there, right? And for once could perhaps this silence, perhaps this youth silence could interrupt this sadness. It would break this sadness, because in this quietness everyone will be together, of never understanding ourselves and of threatening ourselves with death, because generally we do not understand ourselves. So again he's talking about the same thing, that is introspection and retrospection. This would be a moment when we would think about ourselves, what we are. We would the humans would get time to understand themselves first, right? And he suggests that by keeping quiet we will be able to understand the true purpose of life. Why humans are leading the life, the true purpose of life would be well understood by humans at this moment when they would be silent, right? So all human beings work endlessly with the aim of completing all their tasks. They are driven by the target of survival and the threat of death. So they are in a mad rush to accomplish all their works. He says that perhaps if they pause for a while, they can appreciate their achievements and their lives would become happier. He suggests that by keeping quiet, we will be able to understand the true purpose of life. Please read out this stanza, Gunur.
Now, poet wants to clarify to his readers that when he asks them to stop from saying or doing anything, he doesn't want
Gunur,
anyone to become.
just a second. Gunur, just a second. Please give me a pause for a moment. Just a moment, please. Please continue.
Now, the poet wants to clarify to his readers that when he asks them to stop or from saying or doing anything, he doesn't want anyone to become a non-active person. Non-active is a person who remains idle and doesn't do anything. Here, he simply means that we should stop and see the consequences of our deeds. The poet doesn't want to see people being killed due to their greed for money and expansion of territories. Further, he says that people are continuously working to achieve their tasks without even thinking about the results. They are in a fear of death and therefore want to achieve most of the things before their deaths. Here he urges them to stop for a while and take some moment to relish on what they have achieved till now. Everyone here is living a life in which he wants to achieve various things one after another, but now the poet says it is the time to stop and see what has been achieved and should be enjoyed. This will help us skip this will help us skip the sadness which has become so prominent in our lives. The sadness is not enjoying what we have achieved and the greed to achieve what next is in the list to be achieved.
Right. So basically, in this stanza, what we find that the poet talks about that it's a human tendency that we keep on working, we keep on doing our jobs. We at times we do not even realize what will be the outcome of the job, what will be the outcome of the activities which we are doing that may hamper somebody physically or emotionally, but we keep on doing that. Greed is somewhere, obviously, at the back end of it, the greed is there, and we threaten ourselves with death. Even when we are accumulating wealth, we keep on doing that. We keep on looking for comforts and riches. We keep on accumulating them, but then we are not enjoying it because every time we are in a rush. So the poet here says that this will be the moment then when everybody will give a pause. They will introspect, retrospect, realize what they are, what is their purpose of life, and they would enjoy what they have earned, right? They will relish what they have got rather than showing the greed and running after the materialistic things again and again. Let's move on further. Now, this is the fifth stanza. Perhaps the earth can teach us as when everything seems dead and later proves to be alive. Now I'll count up to 12 and you keep quiet and I will go. Now, this stanza is again very important. in this stanza, the poet is comparing this thing, man to earth. He says that a man, a human, should learn from earth, right? Nature. Every single day, the nature, the earth, it becomes live. It's not lifeless in the evening, we can say, but it becomes, it's still. As this, even when the weather changes, the season changes, everything in the winter is frozen, it becomes lifeless. And after some time, there is again the season changes. There is a period of spring when new buds, new leaves come up, new flowers are there, new fruits are there, right? So once when everything is dead, then something from the beginning again starts, right? And then they later prove to be alive again. So he says, let's begin it from the beginning, right? Let's give a pause here and let's start it from the very beginning, just like the earth. He's asking the humans to give a pause, introspect into their lives, and give it a new context. Look at it in a new perspective. We will be able to understand the purpose of our life, and it's like going to be a rebirth, rejuvenation for human souls, right? So again, in the last line, he repeats the same line which we have done, I think, in the first stanza itself. Now I'll count up to 12 and you keep quiet and I will go. These lines are repeated, they are like refrain. The poetic uh, literary structure used here is refrain, where he says that I'm going to count up to 12 again, and I'll count up to 12 and you keep quiet and I will go, right? So again, that means he's emphasizing on that point of being silent for a few minutes. Please read out this explanation.
The poet suggests us to take a teaching from nature. As the earth undergoes changes in winter, everything freezes, become lifeless. But after some time, the season changes again and everything comes back to the life. Similarly, taking a pause and introspecting into our lives will give it a new meaning. We will be able to understand the purpose of our life. It will be like a rebirth of a soul. The poet has conveyed to all the people the purpose of his message, and so he asks them once again to take a pause, count till 12, and walk out of the scene, keeping the scene open for all the people on the earth to experience this for times to come.
Right. So now the poet suggests to human beings that we should learn a lesson from earth. During the winters, everything freezes and becomes lifeless. But when season changes and it's on the onset of spring season, everything present in the nature, such as the trees, birds, rivers, etc., get life. So here the poet, by giving the example of nature, wants to say that all the human beings should stop and try to judge their deeds. They can try and make their life better with calmness, peace. Finally, he ends up saying that now he will count up to 12 so that we all may become quiet. Here, quiet means to calm down ourselves and move towards a path of peace and harmony. After saying this, he says, I will go. He says so as he has conveyed this his message to the people and wants them to be left alone to think about it and work in the direction of peace. So basically, if we see the entire gist of the poem, the poet feels that the modern world is full of clashes. There are a lot of disturbances. There are a lot of quarrels, fights among humans. The kind of a life man is leading today, it's full of competitions, challenges, and in those cutthroat competitions, we do not realize how much harm we are doing to our fellow human beings. And while harming others, somewhere we are harming ourselves also, right? Whether it is related to green wars, whether it is related to other wars, whether it is related to the feelings of hatred, jealousy, whatever, right? Man, today's man is suffering. He's bounded by his schedule to survive in this materialistic world. He's threatened by death every time. So he keeps on rushing. So he keeps on running. Now, the poet, in order to bring peace and harmony, in order to bring that you know, a very some kind of smoothness, a comfort in man's life. He is asking everybody, he's requesting everybody that I'll be counting till 12 and I want you people to stop, because this pause will actually give you a time to judge your deeds, to introspect yourself, to actually analyze what you have been doing and what effect your deeds are creating, right? And once you do that, that will bring, you will be able to understand your follies, your misdeeds, which all you have done. You will rectify it, and that will create harmony and brotherhood in the world. That will bring about some kind of peace and harmony for sure. So at the end, we find there's the only difference in the last two lines. In the beginning stanza, when he says that I'll count up to 12, that line is somewhere here. I'll just come on to those lines. Please give me a second. See, here he says, now we will count to 12 and we will all keep still. So in the beginning, he says, now we will count to 12 and we will all keep still. So in the beginning, in the first stanza itself, the poetry starts with these lines only. That is the purpose. That is what he's asking everyone to do. At the end, after giving all whatever his explanation he wants to give, after giving all that, at the end, again the poet says that let's count till 12. But then at the end, he says, now I'll count up to 12 and you keep quiet, I will go. So he says, I have shown you the direction. I have shown you the path. So let's now start counting 12 and I will go. Means now you think about it yourself. I'm giving you time. Think about it and follow the path of peace and unity which I have shown you. Right? So I think we have finished with the explanation entirely. We can stop here.